And so again, welcome everybody. And I am Arnfinn Alsterfjord, and I'm the global head of the KCS Academy. And welcome to our KCS in Action webinar. And here we're featuring Reggie Adams and Richie Amacchio from ADP. And they're going to discuss how they leveraged Scrum in their KCS program. And not only for the tools and features, but for the entire KCS methodology deployment. So we see often people leveraging Scrum for more of the tools and features. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they've leveraged it for the entire methodology. But some housekeeping before we begin. This session is being recorded, and we're going to post that on the KCS Academy site, as well as we'll send out to all who have registered. And please post your questions in chat. So the ADP team will be monitoring the chat, and we'll either answer them in chat or save them for the Q&A session at the end. And they've been gracious enough to volunteer for those questions that we can't get to in the live session. They will, we'll give them the chat log, and then we'll make sure we answer all the questions and send those out with the recording this week. And please put yourself on mute. And again, all of your questions, put those in via chat. And then we want to make sure you're aware of upcoming KCS Academy events. So on January 18th, Romain Garcia from PTC will discuss their unique approach to their knowledge domain analysis program. And PTC has been experimenting with a new approach for KDEs. And they've been doing that for about the past 18 months and are ready to share results, lessons learned, and best practices. And Jennifer Mortcat, our community success manager, will be posting a link in chat for that event. And it's always great to hear about digital transformations happening in this broader community. And so whether it be successes, strategies and tips, as well as ditches people encountered and how to avoid them. And when I say digital transformation, we typically have KCS, but if you're doing some interesting things with auto support, proactive support, intelligent swarming, community as a channel, chat, etc. Anything that has to do with the digital transformation of your service organization, we'd be very interested in hearing about that. So if you'd like to present at a KCS in Action, please reach out to me and we'll get you on the calendar. And I'm going to post my contact information in chat shortly. But I'm very excited about today's event and pleased to pass it over to Reggie and Richie.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are joining us from. Thank you for attending our session. We're really excited to talk about how we use Scrum to deploy our KCS program. Thank you, Arnfinn, Jennifer, and the rest of the Academy for allowing us the opportunity to speak. And also being flexible. I know some of you probably signed up for our August session, and we had to defer it a little bit due to some changes on the team, but we're here now, so we're really thankful and glad to be here with you guys today. If I can get my remote to work. So a little bit about ourselves. So this is the team. A few of our members will be in the chat monitoring some of the questions that you might have. But as for me, Richie Amacchio, I'm located here in Virginia. I've been with ADP for 4 years, and I actually started out in our IT division. So I've been an IT professional pretty much my entire career until I switched over to what I'm doing now. And so I actually started out as in charge of the coaching program here, and recently transitioned to the Scrum Master. Just this past year. So in March, I took on the role of interim Scrum Master, and then received my certified Scrum Master certification just this past September. And so we dropped the interim title, and so here I am. And with that, I'd like to give Reggie some time to introduce himself.
All right, excellent. Hello, everyone. And as Richie mentioned, Reggie Adams. So I am the program manager / product owner for our HROKM team. And so as Richie indicated, he is the Scrum Master for our team. But just like any successful initiative, it can't start without a great executive sponsor. And so just like all all KCS programs out there, we have a great executive sponsor in Kay Lucas. The way we decided to organize our team throughout the ranks of our group is that we focused around areas of responsibility, important aspects of the KCS program that we really wanted someone to develop an expertise in and engage in with those stakeholders that have a vested interest in the work of that group. So on our team, we do have a lead knowledge domain expert in Alex Smith. We find coaching, as we all know, is incredibly important to the success of a program, and we have a lead KCS coach in Anna Kanaj. Also, we place an emphasis on process integration and consistently evolving our platform that we use for case resolution, as well as the knowledge platform, that we consistently integrate that into the workflow of our service teams. And so Jewel Jones is our knowledge architect, and she places a lot of emphasis on that. We also are placing a significant emphasis on reporting out the impact that knowledge use has for the business and all the objectives we're trying to achieve. And so the KCS business analyst for our group is Sarah Palazzolo. And just recently, we have the ability to focus significantly on training and development. We're engaged pretty considerably with our enterprise learning team, and so we have a lead trainer that really heads that up. And so we're focused on integrating KCS principles throughout our onboarding activities, as well as deploying online learning to help drive the continual development of our organization. And so we're very happy to now be able to have a lead KCS trainer to focus on that. Richie's going to talk a little bit about how, even though we are a Scrum team, we still recognize the world of waterfall project management. Many parts of the organization still leverage waterfall project management, so it was important for us to have a project manager on the team to help translate a lot of the work that we're doing into this waterfall reporting system and mechanism. And so we partner with the PMO, and we have Chris Grubmeyer, who really plays that liaison for us from a project management standpoint. So I'll turn it back over to Richie. That's our team.
Thank you, Reggie. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'll let you go through the agenda, and then I'll jump right into it.
Yeah, so this is what we're going to cover in today's presentation. So we're going to give you a little bit introduction about our team, because I think from a scope standpoint, I know a lot of you attend this call and you wonder, about the size of our organization, the size of our team, the size of the deployments that we're working with, and we want to be able to make sure that, you can compare kind of the size and the scope of what we do and see if it translates to your organization. So we'll provide you a little snippet of our team here at ADP and kind of how our breakdown goes. For some of you, you might not know what Scrum is, and so I'll provide an explanation of the Scrum process. And obviously you're not going to earn your CSM certification today, but hopefully it'll generate enough interest for you to take the next step moving forward if it's something that you're interested in doing. Then we'll talk about how we use the process to implement our program and give you some details there about what we're working with, and then we'll go into Q&A. Again, if you do have questions, definitely feel free to post in the chat, and the rest of our team will cover those. So Reggie, I'll go ahead and switch it over to you to talk about our team.
Good deal. All right, a little bit about ADP. So we were initially founded in 1949. The initial name was Automatic Payrolls, and in 1961, we became ADP. We are a publicly traded company, and we're on the NASDAQ. And roughly organizationally, in terms of size, roughly 58,000 associates servicing, in the ballpark of 920,000 clients in 140 countries. So we are international. And about 23,000 clients are actively using platforms that we support, such as the Service Portal, which is an external-facing resource that allows our clients to submit cases, communicate with their service rep, as well as access knowledge. So we'll get a little bit more into what this looks like for our team. So there are several services that we offer. Now, from a knowledge management perspective, we do have the focus on helping to build knowledge in these areas. So we tackle everything from payroll, and the other services we offer extend from benefits, talent management, human resources, time management. So, these are in effect some of the domains that we help support, and there's several teams that we help engage and leverage KCS best practices to become more efficient at providing service to our client. So we'll go to a little bit more of an explanation around this. So there's several business groups within ADP. Now, the ones that are external facing, if you see the red markings here, these are the external facing groups, meaning the groups that have direct interactions with our clients. We sit within human resource outsourcing. So we don't have yet full kind of a full scope of providing service to all of ADP. We primarily focus on, if you click the next slide, the human resource outsourcing group. And so there is some complexity and nuance even within HRO, which we're going to go into. So from a human resource outsourcing standpoint, we provide service to those organizations that would like us to manage some of their human resource operations. So this could be, we help support, the running of payroll, to how organizations submit taxes, to employee benefits, the strategy around that, and also just basic HR management. And so the groups that we support provide direct services to our clients, right? So within HRO, I mentioned there was some complexity there. Like there's 3 different main divisions within HRO. What we call total source comprehensive services and resource. There's knowledge that is common across all 3 areas, but at the same time, there's nuance and difference between the 3 areas as well that require us to be agile in how we respond to those needs and just understand the client that they are providing support to. So we really need to be flexible in order to do that. So we'll go to the next slide here. Now, the 3 within HRO, and the next slide I'm going to show you will show you kind of how it's organized and broken down. But we sit within the shared service component of HRO. And so we provide service, as I mentioned, to total source comprehensive services and resource, and we're one of several shared services. We do have a project management office, we have a business intelligence office, as well as a business transformation team that's within shared services, and knowledge management is a shared service, and we often collaborate on many large-scale initiatives with the other shared services within the HRO. So there is a lot of collaboration, and there's a lot of different stakeholders that we strive to understand what their needs are and leverage Agile Scrum to be able to provide support through the KCS methodology. All right, so what would any good story be without an origin story? It might not be as exciting as the Avengers or something like that, but we have an origin story as well. And so like many organizations, we started in a knowledge engineering space, really the KM program, and there's been several iterations actually of the KM team, but we started in the engineering space where we consolidated and centralized creation of knowledge content really to a small group of people. And just like I'm sure everyone on this call with their KM programs experienced, with that type of model, it's just very difficult to keep up with the complexity and the changing demands that our stakeholders require with this kind of format. And so we started there. I joined the organization roughly 2020. And there was already, as I mentioned, several iterations of the knowledge management team. KCS actually was discussed around this time, However, it wasn't something that we just dove right in and went full go. I think the lesson I learned from this is it may take people marinating and thinking about a concept like KCS a little bit of time before, the pain sets in. They finally realize the merits of the methodology. But after I joined, we dove headlong into KCS. And so the executive sponsor, had a vision about the value and the contributions KCS could make. And so if we go to the next item, I assembled the KM team. So we really started to put the team together and bring on board people that, didn't necessarily need the experience right off the bat, but had the appreciation really to try something new. Also, I was very fortunate as one of the first people that came on board the team was Jewel Jones, which came from an organization that was implementing KCS. Richie, as he mentioned earlier, was a member of the team, switched gears and roles for us, and really took over the Scrum Master responsibilities. But that really allowed us to start making the inroads and launch 3 pilots, deploying KCS out to the organization. So we were very fortunate to have actual members from that first deployment of KCS that loved the methodology so much that they actually became members of our KM team. And so we keep growing and evolving, and so we're still learning quite a bit through our journey. And so Richie's going to talk about what the Scrum journey looked like from this point. So I'll pass the microphone to him.
Awesome. All right. So right as we got through that third deployment, or right as we were coming off that third deployment, we came into what ADP likes to call year end. And this is the time of open enrollment. It's a time where a lot of our clients are really, really heavy as far as, things that they're doing for their organizations from an HR standpoint. It could be taxes, it could be payroll, it could be open enrollment, it could be, a lot of times we do, I'm sure your organization does it too, where you start doing performance reviews and things like that. And so there's a lot of changes that happen with that. What we found with our pilot teams is they struggled to really, they hadn't been fully adopted into KCS at this time. So they struggled to kind of maintain some of those behaviors. Coaching pretty much fell off at that point with a lot of these pilot teams. And so we had a review early 2020 to talk about, what are some of the things that we can change to make life easier, especially during the year-end time period. So, we talked about, some of our issues with handling multiple deployments, and especially you can see they're kind of layered. So, they had different start times. So they were in different phases of their deployment at different times. Also, how do we adopt to change quicker? And so one of the things that was discussed is, hey, let's try Scrum. And I'll talk about, more of what Scrum is a little bit later. So our project manager at the time, she went and got her certified Scrum Master certification, and we started implementing these practices. And so we had our first sprint, which I'll talk about sprints a little bit later as well. We had our first deployment using Scrum, and then we started picking up a couple more deployments. About midway through 2020, we adopted Jira as our platform for tracking our work. As Reggie mentioned, we were also doing waterfall type projects, so we were using a different platform for that. But we switched to Jira because of its flexibility and really with an Agile and Scrum framework. At the beginning of 2021, we introduced our first quarterly PI planning, and I'll talk more in detail about what that is. And as I mentioned, I became the Scrum Master about midway through this year and started implementing some more of these initiatives. All right, so Matej, I know you were asking about our environment, so here we are. So HRO, we have about 5,000 associates. So if you remember, ADP as a whole was upward of 50,000. So, HRO represents about a tenth of the organization. 3,800 of those are actual service agents who, take calls, chats, interact with the clients and their employees directly. But you want to ask, how many are actively participating in KCS? Well, the answer to that is all of them. What we did, one of the things that we rolled out and we recognized is we wanted to get KCS in the hands of everybody, even though we hadn't officially deployed them through the program yet. And so what we did is we created an online training that everyone in the organization can take. And we created what we call a reader level. So this training is now included in all new hire onboarding. So anybody that comes into the HRO is going to start off at a reader level. And so what the reader level does, it pretty much allows anybody in the organization to use search, linked, and flag. So we actually teach them as part of their training how to use the knowledge base, best ways to search, how do they link their articles to their cases, and how they flag feedback on those articles. And then you can see the rest of our license level breakdown. So this is across all our deployments. So it's not just centered around any particular one. The amount of candidates, contributors, publishers, coaches, and KDEs that we have throughout our organization. Some of you are interested in what platform we use. So we do use Salesforce. There's a knowledge component within Salesforce, so it's integrated right into our CRM solution. So our associates can pull up client account information, view their case history, view points of contact, view the account owner, any interaction that we've had with a client, it's all there. And then right next to that is the knowledge base, right embedded right into that. Also available to our clients, as Reggie mentioned, is the service portal. So the service portal is our client-facing application that clients can go to view their case history, can actually submit cases, and they can actually view the knowledge that we publish out there to them. So it's a self-service portal. And some of the added features, as Arthur mentioned, not just the deployment, we also use Scrum for adding features. And so we have an AQI app that we use that's right embedded into the tool as well. So our coaches can actually score their AQIs on the articles right then and there. Our feedback process is right through the app as well. And then what we're looking at next is a PAR application. So we can start tracking PAR right within the system itself. So the knowledge articles that we have in our system we have about 8,000 that are published. 20% of those are available through the service portal. And our success rate, which we measure as people who access knowledge without opening a case within a 3-hour window, is roughly about 50% this recent quarter. So I'm going to talk about Scrum. Again, this is just an overview. I do actually have a lot of slides here, but this is just to give you an overview of the Scrum process. So you may have heard the term Agile along with Scrum, and some people think that they're interchangeable when they're in fact not. Scrum is Agile is a concept, and Scrum is just a way of becoming Agile. So Agile isn't a noun. It's not something that you do. I don't do Agile. We become Agile. And so another kind of misconception is that Scrum is a methodology. Scrum, there's all these steps, these defined steps that you have to take in order to practice Scrum, but really it's just a framework. So you can take bits and pieces of it which you want. And so what I'll do is for this presentation is I'll provide you, some of the basics and then, how we practice it. But if you redo the research, there's going to be tons of different ways that you can apply this to your organization and make it work for you. As we mentioned, kind of Agile has its roots in software development, and but it's slowly starting to make its way into other industries and fields, including what we do here at ADP. But typically software development projects followed one of two ways, either Agile or waterfall. Waterfall is kind of the older method and traditional way of doing it, but it's still out there in some organizations. But more people are starting to move into an Agile way of thinking. So what are the differences between the two? So Agile is an incremental and iterative approach, right? So you'll see where there's a lot of opportunities where we're delivering something sooner, rather than waterfall, where it's kind of got this linear and sequential approach where I got to go from one phase to move to the next one. So I've got to do requirements first, then I got to do development, then I have to do testing, then I got to go package, and then I got to do testing more, and then I got to doc. So Agile kind of allows us to work on several things simultaneously and make sure that we're delivering something. Again, our projects are divided into sprints, so each one has a discrete deliverable that we want to show at the end of that sprint, and we can adjust with every iteration. In a waterfall project, those are divided into phases, and one has to finish before the next one can begin. In Agile, there's really a strong focus on customer satisfaction and value, whereas in waterfall, it's really about the end product. What am I delivering to my client? With Agile, again, is we're doing checks at the end of each sprint. We can allow for requirement changes at any time. So I can show you something at the end of 3 weeks, as part of whether it's our deployment or whether it's a feature, and you can tell me if you like it, you hate it, if we need to make changes or anything like that. With waterfall, you might not see a product or a service until 6 to 12 months later, and by then the business could have changed, your requirements could have changed, that sort of thing. And with Agile, there's really this concept of everything is owned and managed by the entire team, whereas in waterfall, you kind of usually have a single point of contact in a project manager who is kind of the be all end all and decision maker. So again, I mentioned Scrum is just a flavor of Agile, but there are tons more out there. So, if you go out and do some research on different methodology or different frameworks that are out there, some of these you've probably heard of before. These are kind of the bigger ones, but in reality, at last I checked, there are over 200 different frameworks that are out there in the world. What I imagine is somebody takes one and does something different with it and then publish it, and then all of a sudden it's a framework. So, make it your own if it is something that you want to work on. All right, so we'll transition now to Scrum. So Scrum, again, it's a framework of Agile. And this is just the basic definition and some of the features and what we like about it. So again, I mentioned, it's very lightweight, it's customizable. You can adopt all, you can adopt some. But what we really like in it is the fact that, like I said, I can provide incremental value in a shorter time frame. So as you can see, when I start talking about how we layer it in our deployments, I can show you something, whether it's a service, whether it's a feature, and get some feedback on that. See if we're going in the right path, see if it works for, your group. And if it doesn't, then, we can make changes. Scrum also requires accountability. So you'll see that we meet daily. And I know that sounds crazy. I know a lot of you probably hate meetings, but, it's a really easy way to keep everybody accountable and really just stay on top of the project and making sure it's going in the right direction. Again, that daily meeting will also allow us to identify any roadblocks. If there's anything that's preventing us from delivering a service or a feature, we can identify that pretty quickly. Cross-functional teams are welcome. So if you remember on the original slide, Chris G, who was in the upper right, he's not actually part of our team, but we bring him in to provide his expertise. And so the good thing about Scrum teams is you can stand them up and you can take them apart, just as easily. So if for this sprint, I need to bring in, like an Excel guru or a SharePoint guru, I can reach out to another team, pull him into the team. He can work with us for as many sprints as he needs, and then we can go send them off somewhere else. And as I mentioned, it's not just for software. We are not a software team. And you can see as we go through the presentation how we can make it work as far as service delivery goes. So what is the Scrum team? So the Scrum team has 3 roles: a product owner, a Scrum master, and a developer. So the product owner, his job is to ensure the team's workload is delivering value. So he manages the backlog, which I'll talk about later. How do we know what's valuable? Well, he's the one who's talking to the stakeholders. So the stakeholders are, they meet constantly and they talk about, hey, what's going to be valuable to our organization? And so Reggie, being our product owner, he meets frequently with all our stakeholders to find out what's important for them. What are some of their pain points? What are some of the things that they need? And he brings it back to us. The developers, again, it's a software term, but this is our doers. So this is everybody else that you saw on the initial slide. They're the ones who are doing the work, creating the value and ensuring the quality of the work. And then my role as a Scrum Master is to ensure that the team is following the process and making sure that we're working efficiently and working smartly. And one of the big things that I do also is work on impediments. So impediment is a term, like I mentioned earlier, of not being able, something's come up that we're not able to complete the work. It could be maybe a resource is down, or a resource is on a leave of absence, or a resource that just isn't responding to your message, whatever the case may be. So if our team can't resolve it, I'll step in and try to figure out what we can do to move it through. Basic Scrum in 4 steps. So there's a product backlog, and this is, again, all the work that Reggie brings to the table that our team needs to work on, and he will order this by priority. Step 2, Scrum team works during what we call a sprint. And at the end of that sprint, what we want to do is deliver value in the form of an increment. It could be a service, it could be a feature, it could be, I just need 3 more coaches. How do I get 3 more coaches? That sort of thing. And then step 3 will be what we call the review and the retrospective. So this is the time for us to really talk about, what did we do this past sprint? And then we can adjust from there. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we just repeat. So the layout of a sprint, you can see a sprint is a short time box period when the team works on what we're going to deliver for that sprint. So sprint typically can be anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks. Ours is a 3-week sprint. So at the beginning, we have the sprint planning, then we have a daily scrum, and then at the end, we have the review and the retrospective. One of the best practices of a sprint is to make sure that it's the same length, so you kind of build this rhythm. And ideally, your meeting times will want to be the same as well. So I'll talk about what a user story is. So a user story is basically the work that we're working on. And the way that a user story is articulated is in the perspective of the end user. So it's not so much, I need to deliver this report. It's how is my user going to use this report? And I'll talk about that a little bit on the next slide. But it's really just how is it that what we're working on is going to provide value to whoever needs it. So a user story should represent the smallest amount of work that be completed within a sprint. Anything that's going to take more than 1 sprint, we call those epics, and we really want to break those epics into smaller chunks of work. And so this is a couple examples of things that might be a user story. And these are just really high level titles of them. And I'll talk about how we write one. So again, it's written in the context of the value that's going to be delivered, and usually follows this format: as a blank, I want to blank, so that blank. So what does that mean? So as a, who am I building this for? So if I was taking this story here, I want to call this, so as a leader in the TSEH space, what is it that they're trying to achieve? Well, I want to recognize my associates for adopting and promoting KCS behaviors amongst the team. So a couple things here is we're not necessarily talking about the features, and we're not talking about the implement. Like, I don't want to pigeonhole myself into saying, I want to recognize them through chat, or I want to recognize them through email, or I want to recognize a big signboard on the interstate. Because what that does, it kind of boxes you in. We'll work on the implementation during the sprint. They don't really care how we deliver it as long as they can deliver it. So what's the benefit we're trying to achieve? So that we can generate excitement about the KCS program and encourage other associates to adopt the behaviors as well. So this is one way of writing a user story, but there's always more than one way. So now I take this from the perspective of the associate. As an associate in TSEH space, I want to be recognized for adopting and promoting KCS behaviors amongst my team members, so that I can level up through the program to become a trusted advocate for KCS. So you can see the 2 scopes are slightly different, right? I got one who's focusing kind of on the macro point of view of getting everybody involved, while the other one is focusing on the person, maybe we want to get more candidates or contributors through the program. And so, it really depends on what you want to focus on. So user stories is really one of the most difficult practices, and this is kind of how we decide what work we're going to take on. So we assign points to them, and it's really just a relative estimation of effort. It doesn't necessarily represent the amount of time, because typically we're going to finish that during the sprint regardless. But like I said, you want to consider breaking up these large ones into chunks of work. So the first ceremony is the sprint planning. This typically happens the first day of the sprint. It's what starts off the sprint. And during the ceremony, we'll define what can be delivered and how that work will be achieved. So just a quick example of how the sprint planning works. So say we've got our sprint backlog here on the left, or excuse me, our product backlog, and I want to move everything into our sprint. So let's just say my team has a capacity of 11. So I can go ahead and take, some of the stories off the top here, and now I'm at 5. Well, I can't take this next one because it's a 10-point story. So I've got 2 options. I could just go ahead and take the next ones off the list until I get to 11. Or what I can do is I can break that up into smaller stories. So maybe I take the development side and then I take the training side, and now I can move that over to that. And I'm kind of rushing here because I know I'm getting pressed for time here a little bit. So my apologies ahead of time. And then what we'll do is we'll move those stories up to the next sprint. So a daily scrum, again, I mentioned that we meet daily, but it's only a 15-minute meeting. And again, it's really just to highlight what our progress is. So we want to move, our stories from to do to done. And really the daily scrum asks 3 questions. What did we do yesterday? What are we working on today? And what issues are blocking me? And again, the impediments are kind of the key of what I look for. Excuse me. The impediments are the issues that I'm looking for to make sure that our team can get these items over to done. Some of the best practices, again, keep it short, meet at the same time, and then keep it focused. Like you don't want to turn this into kind of like a to-do list. Like I met with Bob and I met with Tim and I met with Chris. That's not really what it's for. And you want to track and assign your impediments, so that has some ownership of who's going to be working on those. The review demo at the end. So this is really what where we show off what it is that we worked on. We can invite our stakeholders to that so they can see it and provide feedback. And then after the meeting, the product owner will take some of that feedback and either create more stories, delete stories, change them however he needs to, and the team will go into the retrospective, which is where we talk about our process. And so again, this is how we determine how do we become more effective, how do we adjust accordingly. So just a quick example of how the retro works. So this is how we do it. So we have, we'll take the beginning of the meeting for the team to go throw some stickies on here, what they think went well, what could have gone better, and then just some, utter what ifs and unanswered questions. And what we try to do is we try to find themes. And from those themes, we want to identify what our next action. So if you recall, retro is one day, sprint planning is the next day. So really the change to get better at it is pretty quick. Whew, that was Scrum in 20 minutes, guys. All right, so we'll talk about how now we implemented our KCS program, which is really what you guys came for, right? So again, as Reggie mentioned, we are not strictly an Agile team. We are Agile and Waterfall. So if you think about KCS deployments, right? So we have, when you're deploying KCS, you have milestones, and we have the 4 phases. And you guys are familiar with this. We can't move to adopting until we're done with planning and design. So this really fits more alongside the waterfall method. But what we do is we take the work within those phases and turn them into our sprints. And so we'll identify some of, what we need to complete during those milestones, whether it's, opportunity assessments, whether it's communication program, whether it's, we want to try to get a certain amount of candidates, trained and et cetera, et cetera. And that's what we use our sprints for. What it also does is it's beneficial for process changes and tech changes. And I'll show you a couple examples of that. But what it also is also good for, and I missed this bullet, is it's good for simultaneous deployments at different stages. So we have, at any given time, we have multiple deployments going at the same time as far as different teams go, and they could be in different places. And so it really kind of helps us keep those things organized. So one of the things that we do that is called PI planning, and I mentioned that earlier. So PI planning is almost like sprint planning, but it's for the entire quarter. So what we do during PI planning is Reggie will identify, some of the initiatives that we want to work on, and he places them within the sprint that we want to complete those in. And then from there, we start assigning stories. And, for like, say, for instance, as we lay these out, I realize I have a prerequisite that I need to do before I can do story 1 here. So then I'll go ahead and add a story to the sprint ahead of that. and we continue that, so on and so forth. So today, this is what we look like, and corporate wouldn't let me tell you our actual team name, so I kind of changed the initials there a little bit, but we've got 3 deployments that are currently in operational mode. So they are functioning on their own. We are there as a consultant if they have any questions about their process. We've got 4 teams currently in adopting, and then we have 2 in planning and design. So again, some of the benefits of why we chose Scrum to deploy KCS, again, it keeps the scope of our work focused, especially when we've got multiple deployments going on at the same time. We show iterative progress early and often. So again, we're meeting with those teams regularly and letting them know what we're working on. If there's any changes in their organization, we can react to those pretty quickly. This green one down here, industry changes. As you guys know, the past couple of years with the pandemic, especially in our business, it really hit us pretty hard. And so, being able to change, every 3 weeks or what we're working on, it really helped out. So again, we don't just use it for our deployments. We sometimes identify initiatives that's going to help our program as a whole. And so here's just a few of those that we worked on. So again, with our service portal, which is our client-facing entity, we had developed the user training that everybody in the HRO takes. With that, we came up with a dashboard that our leaders can use to review how their team's behaviors are helping out, with things such as their some of the metrics that our service teams look for, as far as like case age and handle time and things like that. We developed a peer coaching program. So as I mentioned, coaching kind of became a standstill during our year-end times. And so we developed a program where kind of candidates and contributors can work with each other, even though they haven't reached the coaches level yet. They can just kind of look at each other's content, review it, and make sure that they're adhering to the content standard. Our AQI app was developed using our Scrum initiative, as well as our feedback app. And again, I think somebody had mentioned MVP. What an MVP is, our minimum viable product. So what is the bare minimum that I can do to consider the story done? And with that, stemmed off other things. And so, we have these 2 resource buttons that we put on our service portal, and it's really just a way for our client to click a button and narrow the scope of their knowledge search to either COVID-19 articles or year-end. And then, if maybe they just want to view all of the articles, they can do that. Mobile solutions, we have a mobile app, and so now we've got knowledge published to the mobile app for those who need it. And I'm not going to go through that just because we're running through some time here. So just what are some of the challenges with our environment? And again, how Scrum helps. So, we have different groups, like I mentioned, at different needs. We can't do a one-size-fits-all approach to our program. It's just not possible. Something that we learned, going through the pilot program. And so again, being incremental, iterative, and reactive allows us to kind of work with, at a pace that's allowed by their workload. The constant review and feedback enables us to adjust to those. Again, we have a mixed environment, so not all of our teams are writing their own content. We're still managing some of those, and so they do that through the feedback tool, provide us information, and we can update the knowledge for them. And so, again, so there I mentioned the feedback app. Excuse me again. Again, so year-end, I mentioned year-end and how that was a real critical time for our clients and our service teams. And then COVID, if you recall, what ADP services were really big on, medical benefits, HR policies, leave, OSHA, payroll, taxes, all things that were impacted by the pandemic. And so, again, having that process in place of constantly reviewing and aligning to the changes in the industry and the workflows of our teams helps us adjust. And again, out of that, we also stemmed our COVID resource button on the service portal. Whew. So what's next for us? Again, continued progress of our current deployments. We've got, as I mentioned, 2 that are in pre-planning, but we've got 2 identified for our next quarter. By the end of 22, we hope to have a candidate in every one of our groups, so that we can focus next year on just getting everybody operational. Some of the initiatives that we're hoping to develop, again, a PAR tool within Salesforce. We're working on a domain strategy. So right now the feedback tool, when the feedback comes to us, we still have to assign it to the correct team, but we're hoping to automate that soon, just to kind of free us up a little bit. And it really allows us to kind of package our knowledge into different domains. We want to do some more automation with our reporting capabilities and expanded access to the reporting. And then, there are teams outside of the HRO who are interested in what we're doing. And so if we can, we're starting to generate interest as far as KCS goes throughout the rest of ADP. And I think that will just be a big win for us. Some resources for you. So if you're interested in anything that we're working on, I'll give you some resources. So the Agile Manifesto is kind of the genesis for the Agile program. Basically, a bunch of individuals got together at a ski lodge, and this is what they came up with. Jeff Sutherland was one of the members who was at that, so he's considered the father of Scrum. His book is an excellent read if you want to do that. If you're more of a digital learner, I'll come back to that. So certifications that are out there that are available to you, Scrum.org and Scrum Alliance are kind of the leaders in the industry for certifications. If you're more of a digital learner, Agile for Humans and Scrum Master Toolbox both have excellent podcasts. They have a Twitter feed and YouTube channels if you want to go out there and learn more. And again, I encourage you to research some of the other flavors. Scrum might not be the one for you, but there are others out there that you can take a look at. So definitely reach out to us if you have any questions about anything that you've heard today. Here's our contact information. I'll give you a second if you want to screenshot that. We're all on LinkedIn. And if you want to follow ADP on any of those platforms there, you can. So that's it. Thank you for attending. We'll go ahead and take a look at some of the questions that haven't been answered yet. Reggie, did you want to add any color before we go through those?
No, that's great. And we're getting a lot of great questions in, Richie, and I think we can jump right into it. One of the questions that stands out came from Karen P. And she asked, does the PO or KM manage all the content request prioritization on a day-to-day level, or is there some responsibility placed on developers, which I take that to mean other contributors and other groups? I'll take a first pass, and team, if you want to add some additional insight to this. No, as a product owner, I don't manage all of the day-to-day requests to update content. We do have a flagging process for knowledge content in place, and we're fortunate enough to have several groups that we do have contributors that are able to update content requests and the need to update content as it is flagged. What the article feedback tool really allows us to do is to see all the incoming flagged activity and make sure that the right people get that. Internally, the team, we kind of take a rotation approach to just monitoring that activity and ensuring that it's followed up on appropriately. So we leverage technology, we leverage KCS processes, and we're able to distribute that across the team, as well as our partner teams, partner groups. I don't know if that, let me know if that answered the question for you. Anything you would add?
No, I would not. I see Marie, your question here about article feedback tool. Is it manual? And so, there's a mechanism right in the article where somebody can submit feedback. And, really a lot, us here on the KM team, we're not the experts at everything about payroll and those sorts of things. And so what we're really hoping for is they will contribute to, or they will provide, what it is that needs to be changed. So, it could be, something as simple as, in the application, step 3 is incorrect. You need to follow this, or, it could be a complete policy change. Hey, we don't do this anymore. This has to go to, the IRS or something. And so if they provide us that feedback, what we'll do is, if the feedback goes to one of the teams that's already deploying KCS, we'll send it over to their KDEs who'll take a look at it, and maybe they'll assign it to one of their contributors to fix it, because really they're more the experts in that space. If it's a team that's not that hasn't deployed KCS yet, then we will work with that team. So we'll reach out. We might reach out to the requester and say, get clarification. Hey, what do you mean by this, et cetera, et cetera. If they provide us the information, great. We'll get it. We'll get one of the SMEs to take a look at it and just confirm that it's the right information, and then we'll publish it for them. Other than that, if they don't have the details, like they just know it's wrong, then we'll work with the SME in that space to make sure that that we get it updated. But we try to turn those around quickly because obviously you guys know the importance of updated knowledge is key.
We had a great question from Sua that asked, what strategy and best practices will we share for rolling KCS out to the org? I'll share what my initial thoughts are, and then the members of the team could add. I think one of the things that first off, we do follow the adoption guide, right? And as Richie highlighted in one of the slides, we do identify the major milestones for each phase. So we adhere to that, and we do also adhere to the exit criteria for each of those phases. Something kind of beyond that has been helpful is the training that we release to the organization that Richie highlighted. There's some basic things with KCS that just should be table stakes for every employee that uses a knowledge base, just basic table stake stuff. And so we really started to look at where could we partner with our organizations and how could we just make the most foundational, simple components of KCS a part of just natural onboarding and just things that leaders should expect from their teams. What that had really is allowing us to do is to be a little bit faster with how we can implement KCS so that some of the concepts that we're talking about isn't foreign, 100% foreign to our members, that they understand the importance that you want to use knowledge. They understand the importance that you want to leave feedback. Now it gets beyond the point of being, this is some KCS thing, to helping accelerate the process of this is just how we do business. This is just how you use a technology platform or knowledge to be efficient. So that's been helpful. I don't know, team, if there's anything you pulled away that was key for you.
No, I think you hit it right on the head. I'm trying to scroll, but I think Mel covered a lot of these questions. So thank you, Mel, for for helping us out.
And Alex.
And again, if we get through this and then we find any questions that haven't been answered, we'll definitely follow up with you guys. I do see some questions on how our Salesforce is set up. That would be a whole another presentation, but yeah, and we'll definitely have to. Yeah, Jewel's not on this call, so she's our knowledge architect. So she really is kind of the point of contact, especially working with the dev team in Salesforce to get our setup put together. I'll have to check and see, if that's something that we can share. I don't know if that's considered, kind of internal or confidential, but if that's something that that might be interesting, definitely reach out to us and we'll follow up. And if it's something that we can set up on the side, then we'd definitely love to do that. So I'm not shutting you down just yet, but we'll just we have to follow up on that.
That is a great question. And also the concept of process integration, it was important for us. So like one of the reasons we looked at Agile Scrum to help with KCS is both of the methodologies are incredibly focused on providing value from the perspective of the end user. We would write knowledge articles from the perspective of the client using the knowledge article. With Agile Scrum, we're introducing improvements from the perspective of the person who the improvement is meant to serve. And so, looking at what we're going to implement from a dev standpoint, and I'll give you an example. Like we introduced the article feedback tool, but we did that because we partnered closely with our customer experience team, and they did, survey and research for us. And what our service teams were telling us is they felt like when they flagged an article, they just felt like they had no visibility or transparency into what happened with that flag, that they just felt to a certain degree it was going into a black hole. So we took that feedback seriously and really looked at, okay, well, what's a way in Salesforce and in our platform that we can increase the transparency and the ability to track what is happening with the feedback that people are taking time out of their day to flag. And so that's how we came up and landed on the configuration of the article feedback tool. And because we did that research, we're seeing incredible adoption. So within an average month, we see anywhere from 300 plus article flags. You know, just, hey, I really like this article, to can you make this update, or I have a question regarding this. So it really kind of opened a line of communication and a pulse check to our service teams that we can ensure that our candidates, contributors, and KDEs, as well as business leaders, have insight into.
Excellent. Arden, I'm not sure how we are with time. Like,
yeah, no, we have 3 more minutes. So if you want to
needed to do some closing statements or anything like that, or
no, I'm good. If you have, we have 3 more minutes. So if there's just any last question you guys want to pick out of chat, or if not, we can.
I think we got most of them picked up.
Okay.
But we'll review it again, after the call, and try to get this turned around as quickly as possible to you guys. So, I'll go through it again, and I'm pretty sure Mel covered a lot of it, though. Again, if you have any questions on Scrum itself, or just how everything else we deployed, definitely reach out to us. We'd love to connect. If you guys are using Scrum, I definitely want to connect with you guys, just to see how you do it versus how we do it, and maybe we can get some best practices off each other. Reggie, I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to, as Richie mentioned earlier, to come and present to this group. We regularly love to watch these KCS in action, and it was just amazing to be able to come and contribute and present, and contribute to the overall body of knowledge. And so, yes, if you have any additional questions, please let us know. And thank you again. As we continue to walk this journey together, and look forward to connecting in the future. Again, thanks for the opportunity from the HRO KM team at ADP.